girl with a preppy vibe. Came to the spot with a friend of mine. She caught my eye. From the beginning, I was hooked. I can't tell a lie. Fresh, dressed, and fly. I respect her mind. Some dudes trying to impress, but looking goofy at the same time. He bugging, she looking. I'm going for mine. Confidently, I approach with that eye-to-eye contact. She smiling while.
Hey y'all, welcome to the check-in. I'm your girl, STEMFashionista, and may the 4th be with you, okay? We have a lot that we're going to get into today. To kick things off, President Trump announced Project Freedom. This is an initiative, if you will, to get the Strait of Hormuz open and all those ships have been sitting over there for the last 60 or so days, okay? Also, there has been chatter today regarding what's been happening at Strait of Hormuz. So Iran is saying that they attacked one U.S. boat, I believe it said, but the U.S. said that wasn't true. The U.S. is saying that they actually, I guess, attacked or sunk 6 of the Iranian boats. So we'll get into that. And also, we have 2 service members who are participating in a exercise over in Morocco that has been missing. So we're going to find out more about that. And last but not least, Spirit Airlines, they have gone out of business, leaving people stranded and figuring out how they're going to get home while they're traveling. So that's what we got going on for today. How are you all doing? I know we have Mr. Tom Duman in the house. Thank you for being here to get me started off. He's saying here that, guys, do you know World War III is happening right now? Something like 50 countries is at war. I didn't realize that. NATO is 32 countries, Burkina Faso, Israel, USA, many others we never heard about, Somalia and Laos. Interesting, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get into this story regarding Project Freedom. Let's see what President Trump is talking about.
All right, 5:32 here this morning. The U.S. military says it will start helping ships make it through the Strait of Hormuz today, despite ongoing threats from Iran.
Yeah, President Trump calls it Project Freedom, but it comes as 2 more ships have reported coming under attack. Doug Luzader joining us now live from Washington with the latest on this. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning. The president calls this a humanitarian mission to try to get these ships out of the Persian Gulf, but Iran has said that it is a violation of the ceasefire agreement. On his way back to Washington yesterday, President Trump said negotiations with Iran were going very well. Just hours earlier, though, he had promised to intervene in the Strait of Hormuz, saying he would help countries whose ships are stranded because of Iranian threats. He wrote on Truth Social, "For the good of Iran, the Middle East, and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways."
Doing very well with regard to Iran.
On Saturday, the president said talks with Iran were progressing and he was considering a new proposal from the regime.
Let me say this. I think that it is time for those ships that have been just stuck there at the Strait of Hormuz to be able to go home. I mean, to be just sitting there for, I think they said, what, 63 days? Or maybe it was 53. I forgot the number. But to have been just sitting there, just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen is kind of perplexing. So I think that it's a good thing that they're trying to get those boats out. I just wish that both sides would be amenable to it. Like, you know what? The people who are already here, when this thing kicked off, let's go ahead and let them go because they've been here, almost 60 days or whatever the number is. What do you guys think about that? Let's keep it going.
He was asked whether the U.S. might resume strikes.
Well, I don't want to say that. I mean, I can't tell that to a reporter. If they misbehave, if they do something bad, but right now, we'll see.
The U.S. isn't calling this a naval escort operation, but those stranded ships in the Gulf continue to disrupt world oil markets. And more ships came under attack over the weekend. An Iranian parliament member admonished the president, writing, "Warning, any American interference in the new maritime regime of the Strait of Hormuz will be considered a violation of the ceasefire. The Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf would not be managed by Trump's delusional posts." A U.S. Central Command says the new operation to help guide ships through the strait will include guided missile destroyers and more than 100 aircraft. Back to you guys.
All right, Doug Luzader in Washington with the latest on this. Good morning. Thank you, Doug.
Interesting. They're going to have 100 aircraft at minimum, I guess, overseeing the ships moving through. That's gonna be interesting. I'm hoping that they are able to get this accomplished without any issues. But I guess that may be why we keep hearing about so many ships that have been sunk. I don't know why Iran would say them trying to get those ships out would be a direct conflict with the ceasefire agreement. I can understand about anything new, possibly, but the folks who've been sitting there for almost 60 days, like, okay, y'all, let's go ahead and let these folks out since we're under this ceasefire situation. And I'm sure some of the companies who have ships over there have done a risk analysis, like, you know what, hey, should we really take the chance of being quote unquote escorted out of here? Okay. Now, what we have coming up next is allegations, if you will, about Iran saying they have striked so many of the United States Navy ships, as well as the U.S. saying that they have sunk about 6 Iranian boats. So let's get into what all that is. But before we do that, we had Tom Duva saying more war countries: Ukraine, Russia, China, proxy war in Iran, and UAE. Okay, and let me see something regarding the poll. Is the poll going to come up? So I only got 3 votes on the poll, y'all, but I appreciate y'all 3. I said, do you think the stranded ships in the Gulf should be given a safe option for leaving? 67% said no. 33% said yes. It's been over 60 days. So, okay. I see. Thank you for supporting the poll. All right, now let's go ahead and get into this next video regarding who is telling the truth about the status of ships being sank. Let's get into it.
Let's get right to that breaking news. Iranian state media claiming the country struck an American vessel that was headed towards the Strait of Hormuz. But the U.S. military is pushing back on that claim. So here's what we know at this hour. U.S. Central Command says no U.S. Navy ships took any hits and that U.S. forces support a new mission that's called Project Freedom. Now, President Donald Trump announced that new plan over the weekend, and here's what we know about that. He's saying the American military guides ships through the strait, and anyone who interferes with the humanitarian process, as he calls it, faces being dealt with forcefully. So let's go live to CBS News national security contributor Aaron McLean. Okay, so Aaron, right off the top, let's get to that bit of breaking news that we referenced there at the top of the broadcast. Our peers at the Associated Press right now are reporting that U.S. military helicopters have sunk some 6 Iranian boats. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it looks to me as though the Battle of Hormuz has begun. This is something that we've been contemplating as a possibility really since the start of this war on February the 28th. The Iranians closed the Strait of Hormuz shortly thereafter, cutting off about 10% of all global maritime traffic and 20% of the world's oil traffic. The president has tried through negotiations and threats to get the Iranians essentially to open it. Last night, he announced that this Project Freedom was going to be an American effort to begin opening it, and the Iranians have retaliated. So now it's a political decision. Will this conflict in the strait itself lead the Trump administration to suspending the ceasefire overall and returning to war more broadly? That's what we don't know yet.
It's certainly a fire going on right now. We're understanding that all of those Iranian boats were sunk by Apache and Seahawk helicopters, according to this breaking news. We understand also that Iran has used cruise missiles, drones, and small boats to try to disrupt things there in the strait. Are you seeing the emerging firepower? And let us know and let our viewers know what kind of firepower the Iranian forces face.
Let's stop for a second. So what I just heard a second ago is that Trump is saying, you know what, if anybody tries to stop us from doing what we're calling a humanitarian process, then he said he may have to come out this ceasefire agreement in order to take care of business. Um, I'm perplexed as to why those sitting ducks, if you will, those ships that have nothing to do really with the war piece, they just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, if you will. Why that wasn't considered? Hey, let's get these people moved out of here because these are like civilians, if you will. They're not people that are here to fight the war. So not sure why that wasn't considered initially when they were doing the ceasefire. Maybe it was, and they just didn't really communicate about it to the public. But anywho, what do you guys think? Let's keep this going. Lord, it's sticking, y'all.
Well, they have these small boats. They have mines as well, and they retain a pretty substantial stock of cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and drones with which, for example, they can hit the United Arab Emirates, which apparently they have been doing for the last several hours in a pretty sustained fashion. So they have some capabilities. And look, those capabilities are certainly enough to harass shipping in the Strait. If you're sailing a commercial ship through the Strait.
Let me pause. Thank you, Candy Corey. First of all, you're my first super chat ever. And thank you for the birthday greetings. Yes. Let's keep it going, y'all. And thank you for supporting the channel as you always do.
Machine gun from a small boat is definitely bad for crew morale and enough to give you second thoughts. But I don't advise taking one of those small boats into a tangle with a United States Navy guided missile destroyer, let alone our aviation assets. It's going to end badly for you, as it has ended badly for these 6 boats reportedly.
Lots of Davids out there on the water to the major Goliath of U.S. military force out there. And I would imagine that commanders have some red lines. Do you anticipate for our viewers what some of those red lines could be as we look at this battle in the Strait?
Well, you know, the red line that's most of interest to me is what is the line in President Trump's head that has to be crossed before he considers the ceasefire over. You know, we've had no reports of American casualties or even of American ships getting struck today, not just the naval vessels, but also apparently the 2 American merchant vessels that made it out through the Strait over the course of the last 24 hours as a part of Project Freedom. Is an American getting killed or an American vessel actually getting struck at the end of the ceasefire? Is the UAE getting hit enough? Is the Iranian attempted interference enough? These are the questions on my mind right now, and I think the next few hours even are going to be extremely, extremely decisive.
Right, and I think that's important because people need to stay tuned to CBS News 24/7. We're going to have all of the breaking news as this happens. Give our viewers some sense of who's out there on the water. This is not just these Iranian small boats and the U.S. There are other people who are trying.
So I guess they mentioned a minute ago about what is the line that one will have to cross, I guess, in Trump's mind. And one thing about Trump, he's not going to tell you what that line is. So all we know is that whenever he makes his decision, he gonna move on it. Because one thing about Trump is when he makes a decision, he gonna stick to it and he gonna see it through. So yeah, I'm interested in hearing now how they're gonna describe who's sitting out there at Strait of Hormuz. Like I said, a lot of those people are not like military types. They're just like people who are moving forth with you know, with the oil and whatnot. Also, before I get back to that, Tom Dumas said, you probably did not hear this, but 26 U.S. military bases is it's bombed to rebels. Israel supply lines to 120K soldiers cut off. They are starving in a few days. Source Colonel McGregor, former Trump advisor. I hadn't heard that. Thank you for sharing. I'm reading one more time, y'all. You probably did not hear this. 26 U.S. military bases is bombed to rebels. Israel supply lines to 120K soldiers cut off. They are starving in a few days. Sources Colonel McGregor, former Trump advisor. Wow. So maybe we'll see some movement in the next 3 days then. Yes. And then Tom Duma is saying Trump is Netanyahu's. Oh, Lord. Not that. Do we have Corey saying, I wish I could make videos talking about this? Yes, you can. Yes, you can, sir. But let's get back to this video.
To navigate in the Strait.
Gosh, I believe it's I mean, it's hundreds, if not thousands, of major commercial ships who are bottled up in the Persian Gulf, laden with various cargoes, whether it's oil or other things, that have been essentially trapped in there since the beginning of March. You've seen some efforts to run the blockade, the Iranian blockade of the Strait. You've also seen some vessels coordinate with Iran, presumably pay a fine to get out. But the vast majority are stuck in there, not to mention all the ships that would like to get in there to pick up more cargo should commercial traffic be restored. So it's a crowd. It's a major problem for the global economy. It's also a major problem for the American economy. Gas prices are already elevated. We can anticipate they'll go higher if the Strait remains closed. There was an interesting report just over the last 24 hours on the effects of the fact that America gets 10% of its aluminum from the Strait of Hormuz. So I don't know if you were planning on buying a Ford F-150 anytime soon, but those are made of aluminum. There's all kinds of strange effects that will come from the Strait continuing to be closed, which is why it makes sense that the administration is beginning to attempt to force it open, and the Iranians do not like that.
It's a bottleneck and a boiling point. Aaron McLean, always great to talk to you. We anticipate we'll be bringing you back a lot as we watch these developing news items out of the Strait of Hormuz. Thank you so much. Robert Murrett is a retired vice admiral. He is joining us right now, served the U.S. Navy, currently deputy director of Syracuse University's Institute for Security Policy and Law. That's a big title. First of all, right off the top, thank you so much for your legacy of service. Your reaction to this breaking news about our military sinking those Iranian boats?
Yeah, right. Aaron captured it pretty well, I think. I mean, this is a rapidly unfolding situation. I mean, just what we've seen the last couple, 3 hours has been fairly significant with attacks on both sides by Iran and by us trying to protect the ships, the two that we escorted and a couple of destroyers that we had going through the straits. A lot of takeaways from it. I mean, the first is the fact that the both sides, I mean, the Iranians, in fact, even announced after, I think just about an hour or so ago that they still wanted to control the straits. There's a lot of concerns from all the ships that are still bottled up in there. One of the other things, Reed, which we also just saw, is that one of the major shipping companies made an announcement that their risk assessment has been changed and they're not going to allow their ships to go through the straits based on the current situation. So it's
So I told y'all they probably had those shipping companies doing risk analysis to determine if they're going to allow these boats to go through. And so I guess they're gonna let their people just sit there, I guess, until this is over with. I mean, I wonder like how much do they have for as far as like supplies to just continue to sit out there like that for an indefinite period of time. I don't know, but I don't know. That's just a lot. Let's keep it going. I mean, 60 days and you just sitting out here with no end in sight. I mean, yeah, they got the ceasefire, but even with the ceasefire, they were still talking about how Israel and Lebanon were kind of going back and forth still, and how they were saying, well, if they're still, going back and forth, then this is not the ceasefire. It's not in effect yet. It was like a whole lot of rigmarole that pertained to all that. So I'm sure you guys have seen that prior to now, but let's keep it going.
and as Aaron was saying, the next several hours and the overnight is important too. And just a final comment: it's getting dark over there right now. Which, I'm sure you know it's about 8 hours ahead of us. So, what happens tonight over in the Straits of Hormuz will be critical.
Well, as somebody who has a military background, if you're in the room and you're advising those who are making these critical decisions that affect the lives of our men and women in service, what kind of advice do you give them with these tensions now at a boiling point there?
Well, I think the CENTCOM commander is doing a great job of that and having the escort and the capability. I'm sure the destroyers that did the transit were looking after the two ships which are escorted out of there were general quarters the whole time. But they're very capable of defending themselves. And the air cover that they have, in addition, some of the reports have said a couple of the assets may have been rotary wing, shore based or sea based. And I'm sure there's some additional air cover there. So I think, the advice that we have is to make sure that we have all the protection for the units that are in there. And at the same time, from a, calculated standpoint, that we are engaging as we need to the six sunk Iranian ships that were just reported within the last hour or so, and defending whatever units that we need to escort through or protect going through the streets.
For our viewers just joining us right now, we're getting that breaking news that the U.S., through some military helicopters, has sunk about 6 small Iranian boats. Robert Murrett, thank you so much for your wisdom and your background on this story as it develops. Let's go to the White House now and CBS News' Aaron Navarro. So, Aaron,
I'm going to pause right there. So we have Samuel Amirfar in the chat. So what I was saying, Samuel, is that I'm wondering, like, for the boats who had went over to the Strait of Hormuz, like, collect oil and stuff before the Operation Epic Fury kicked off, like, they've been over there, I guess, about 60 days, right? Give or take. Like, how much longer are they able to sustain being over there? Like, how many do they have the supplies for? Because when they went over there, they ain't gonna be stuck over there, for 60 days. So that's kind of what I was speaking towards when I had the question. But if you have anything you want to add in the chat, please feel free to do so. Yes. We got Tom Duma saying China will not in a million years let USA control Hormuz Strait. One hypersonic missile and an aircraft carrier is on the bottom of Hormuz. Who that stuff belong to? Tom, who belongs? Okay. A hypersonic missile and aircraft carrier is on the bottom of the Hormuz. Who they belong to? We got Caprella saying you look amazing. Thank you, Caprella. Welcome back. And then we have Don Tinker in the house. Hey. And we got Cannon Corey saying this is crazy. Yes, it is. Let's get back to hear what they're saying about the U.S. sinking those 6 Iranian boats.
What does this mean in terms of getting people to the table for a ceasefire?
Reed, if you ask the head of U.S. Central Command, Brad Cooper, what it means, he says at this moment he doesn't know. And that's what he was asked, and that's what he answered at a press conference just this hour. He said he would not go into details on if the ceasefire is over or not, and that CENTCOM and the U.S. military is merely there as a defensive force. Some other notes on this breaking news that we've gotten about 6 Iranian small boats that were sunk by U.S. helicopters. Cooper told reporters that Iran had used cruise missiles, drones, and small boats to try and disrupt the mission of Project Freedom, of escorting ships that have been stranded in the Strait of Hormuz from countries that were not involved in this war that President Trump announced began today. He also added that no U.S.-flagged ships or U.S. warships have been hit. And just to get to Project Freedom, which President Trump announced this past weekend, the reasoning, at least in Truth Social, in a long post that he framed it as, was that it came at the request of countries who were not involved with this war, and that it was to help ships that were maybe running out of food or running into unsanitary conditions. He said that it would be a humanitarian gesture on behalf of Iran, but as we're seeing today, Iran disagrees with this operation. They've said so in many recent posts, and we're seeing throughout the day through their actions as well.
Well, we know, of course, the intention has been to get President Trump's special envoy, his son-in-law, and others over there to continue peace talks. With this new and developing news about the U.S. helicopters sinking some Iranian ships, are there any other voices in the room other than the ones that have been having these conversations?
So they're really thinking about having another discussion as far as like a peace talk. They're supposed to go, if you guys recall, they were heading over there the weekend before last, and the Iranian prime minister, he talked to the people over there, and then he dipped before the U.S. could even get over there. He talked to the people that were kind of coordinating the peace talks, talked to them, and he left. And then Trump was like, he did not authorize the folks to continue on the trip, and he said they can call on the phone if they want to talk. That's the last thing I saw in regards to Trump and the peace talks happening. Because once that prime minister, he said, you know what, I'm gone. I mean, it takes a lot of time to fly from America to over there. You know what I'm saying? And that man is got in his plane and left, and these folks was en route. And so when Trump said they can call us on the phone when they're ready to talk, I was floored. But I could understand his mindset on that. What we got here in the chat? We got Trinity Smith saying, what's happening? Doing good, sir. Doing good. We're gonna go ahead and get back to this video real quick.
Well, we know that one newer addition to the team with Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is lobbyist Nick Stewart, who is supporting them as a policy expert. He actually traveled with them during their last trip to Pakistan, where Vice President Vance also attended sometime in April. And he is listed in doing several lobbying gigs regarding Iranian and Russian sanctions. But in terms of the negotiations themselves, last week President Trump said that most of this is happening over the phone. He doesn't feel the need to be sending a U.S. delegation all the way to Pakistan to Islamabad to hear a proposal that he won't like. We know that there is a 14-point proposal that Iran proposed last weekend, which looked to end the war completely instead of extending the ceasefire. It also sets a 30-day window for the two countries to resolve any issues. President Trump did not seem too optimistic about it, saying he's studying it, but he's unsure if he can make a deal with Iran, citing some of the actions that they've had stemming back from their response to protesters in the country. There have also been reports that the U.S. recently sent a counterproposal to Iran, and that Iran is currently reviewing that. We will see if this latest escalation in the Strait of Hormuz impacts any of those negotiations.
Aaron Navarro following all these breaking details as we learn the U.S. military helicopters have sunk 6 Iranian small boats out there. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's a lot, especially if what the administration is saying is correct, that Iran has a very much so reduced fleet. Losing 6 could be a big deal for them. And I want to say, Tom was saying earlier that according to a former Trump advisor, that they're about to run out of food, if you will. Iran is. So, yeah. Yeah, I was trying to read the comment that he put in here. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see some change in the next few days. I'm not sure. So for those who are here, all 34 of you, please like the live if you are so inclined. Please subscribe to the channel and support your girl. We're talking about right now Project Freedom that Trump initiated this weekend or introduced us this weekend, as well as them saying today that the U.S. has bombed or saying like 6 Iranian boats. We have Trash Channel saying, will the next first lady speak English or was Joe Biden the last? We don't know. We don't know, sir. We're gonna just see what happens. Okay. We got Trinity Smith saying America is doing a lot of funding, and then us American citizens wondering why is the price rate rising because look where our money is going. Understood. Yes. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. I'm sure you guys have heard about the 2 service members that were over in Morocco where they were doing the a mission, if you will, exercise rather. And 2 of the members went for a hike and they have not returned. So they're not really sure what has happened. Okay. So let's go ahead and kind of get into a little bit more of that.
Of course, I do want to continue to follow a big story that we have been tracking here on Live Now from Fox over the last 24 hours or so, as 2 U.S. service members are missing in southwestern Morocco after taking part in an annual multinational military exercise in the North African country. That is according to AFRICOM, which is the U.S. Africa Command. The service members are U.S. Army soldiers who went missing while on a hike, according to U.S. officials there. They spoke with the Associated Press. Now, according to an official, they said, quote, they were not actively taking part in any training. The day's exercises had concluded, and from our understanding, they were out on a recreational hike. AFRICOM said the U.S., Morocco, and other countries took part in the African Lion exercise, and they have launched a search and rescue operation. The incident remaining under investigation. What I want to do right now is bring in a friend of the show to discuss all of this. We have Matthew Wiz Buckley, retired Navy F/A-18 fighter pilot, Top Gun grad, and founder of the No Fallen Heroes Foundation. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Good morning, Josh. Good to see you again.
Good morning. Well, I did want to ask you, kind of starting out, your reaction here as you hear about these 2 missing U.S. military members, an exercise that was going on there over in Morocco. Break down for me your thoughts overall and your analysis from what we know and what we don't know.
Couple things, Josh. When I was in the military, I was married, and now that I'm out of the military, I'm a military dad. So whenever I see news like this, obviously I immediately think about the well-being of the missing service personnel, but I also think of the folks at home, whether it's a husband or a wife or parents, getting a knock on a door or a phone call from a commanding officer or something along those lines. So very, very concerned, obviously, for their safety, but also for the families as well. And that's sometimes lost in the headlines. A couple things on a hike, right? So it was after the exercise. This wasn't part of military exercise. Sounds like cliffs and all sorts of stuff. Morocco is a very interesting place. It's beautiful. So I don't want to speculate at all, obviously, but there's also some bad folks in the region too. So let's just pray for their safe return. But I'm worried after 24 hours. Let's just pray that this turns out better than I'm thinking it is right now.
Explain to me how maybe, and I know everything's kind of different, but a search and rescue operation when you're talking about U.S. service members, and again, this appears to be during a hike, not part of the military exercise, but I have to imagine that everyone is going to come together and do what they can to try to find these people.
100%, Josh. The United States military, we don't go anywhere without a plan if somebody gets lost. This isn't, hey, these two folks are missing. What do we do? Like you and I talked about, geez, it seems like forever ago. It was about a month ago with the combat search and rescue folks going to get our Strike Eagle air crew that got shot down, or the A-10 that, the guy had to eject. There's a well-oiled machine and process that kicks into place. We start executing to it, but it also sounds like obviously the Moroccan authorities and some of the other militaries that were involved in this joint exercise are going to pitch in as well. But we, Josh, you and I have talked about this, no man or woman left behind, and we're going to pull out all the stops to try and find these folks.
And I do want to read some of the reaction that we're getting in right now, because, again, there is a lot of reaction coming in. This is from Senator Tim Scott saying, join me in praying for the safe return of our service members and for the protection of the brave search and rescue teams. Now, there are different missions that obviously go on worldwide. And can you explain to me kind of how those work? Because it sounds as though you would have maybe, I hate to say free time, but you would have some time there to go out and hike.
Well, Josh, that's actually...
Honestly, I was wondering the same thing. I mean, I've never been to Morocco. I know people go there to vacation. But I thought it was interesting that while they're there for this exercise, that these folks was able to, take a hike. But I guess when they have downtime, they can do a little bit of exploration and things of that nature. But very interesting. So let's keep it going. Now, before we do that, I see we have Tom Dumas saying minimum 400 soldiers is wounded. They had to evacuate a hospital to make place for them. Have your news told you that? 400 United States soldiers? Is that what we're talking about? Let me know in the comments. I feel like I've heard that there were some U.S. soldiers harmed, hurt, but I don't recall the number, to be honest with you. Then we have Sites 880 saying earthquake incoming Israel. Wow. Wow. An earthquake happening at this time? This is crazy. Tom Duma is saying, dear STEM family, everything coming from WH is lies. Okay, he's confirming that they're talking about 400 United States soldiers. Interesting. Craftsman is saying, I don't know much about Morocco or how dangerous it is. I don't know either. I mean, I've just seen people go there on vacation, but I mean, they do, I guess, they exercise there, I think every year is what I heard on this news broadcast. So they're practicing and for preparing for something, right? Let's keep it going.
The good deal, right? I joined the Navy and see the world. That's a great deal, right? In the United States military, you get to travel the world. I've been all over the world and countries, and it's a good deal. So this is a good thing. You get some R&R, some rest and recreation and relaxation, or 3 R's that would be. So this is good that our service members are allowed to see foreign countries and stuff like that. But before you leave, kind of safe area or friendly area, Josh, you get a pretty thorough threat brief, even in the most friendly country. Okay. I'm not going to name names, but even in our some of our NATO allied countries in Europe, before you leave a U.S. base, you are given a full threat briefing. Here's friendlies, here's bad folks, here's local folks who don't like us or wish us harm. So even though it's a good deal to be able to go see the world, not everybody digs our being there. So you definitely have to keep your eye on a swivel anywhere in the world in today's climate.
That's
which
right.
Is, of course,
keep your head on a swivel. That's
and
right.
Representative Andy Biggs there saying, I'm praying for the safe return of these 2 U.S. service members who have gone missing overseas. May God return them to their loved ones very soon. Now, going back to what I was asking you a bit earlier, I have to imagine not only do the search and rescue operations continue, but I also have to imagine that U.S. service members are not going to give up. They're going to keep looking. It's not a quick, well, we're searching the area, didn't find them, let's go. I have to imagine that they're going to stay out there and keep looking for their brothers or sisters in this case.
100%, Josh.
I did not know that it was two women. They just said sisters in this case. So it's two women, military members, that are lost over there. Well, okay, we're gonna say lost. That's missing over there in Morocco. My. I do hope that whether men or women, that they come back, that they're found safe and unharmed. And we'll just keep this on our radar. But let's see what they have to say on this matter. This is crazy.
Man, no woman left behind actually means something. We will not leave or conclude this mission until we find these folks. Period. That's just not an option. Failure is not an option to find these folks. Hopefully it is a rescue operation, and then God forbid, Josh, and again, I am not speculating, but right. it moves from rescue operation into potentially recovery, but we're not even close to being there. There is a series of timelines in the United States military that slide people in and out of different statuses, but we're still in the rescue phase, Josh, as you're seeing some of the elected representatives pointing out. So let's all, I absolutely believe in the power of prayer. So I am with these souls are going to be returned home safe, I pray, to their family and friends and their loved ones.
And what are you watching for here as we essentially watch this play out? Of course, hopefully the safe return of these two U.S. service members, but anything else that you're watching for, any questions that you maybe have?
No, Josh, you're not going to, this isn't like a, missing kid here in the United States. The military's going to be a little quiet. We're going to go out because, again, 100% speculation. If it is potential bad guys, we don't want to give them any tip or any intel as to what we're doing. We want to find these folks. We're going to have heads down, and you might hear an update soon. So to be honest with you, no news is potentially good news, right? So let the search and rescue forces do their job, and hopefully we get a good result. But you're not going to see like every couple hour briefing from the local sheriff type of thing from the United States military. The commanding officer of whoever these two personnel are, that guy or gal is walking around those cliffs trying to find him or herself. So quiet, professional, and we'll get a result, and hopefully it's a good one.
And my last question here before I let you go, wanted to ask a little bit about the fact that this is AFRICOM. So we're not talking about U.S. Central Command. We're not talking about a location there in the U.S. And you talked a little bit about Morocco, some other locations, briefings given, and things of that nature. How does a search and rescue operation differ when you are talking about another location, another country? You're not talking about the U.S. or anything like that. How does that kind of change things?
Yeah. Well, the combatant commander, whether it's AFRICOM, CENTCOM, NORCOM, any of those combatant commanders, they have a dedicated search and rescue. Obviously up in the mountains in Canada or North America is going to be different search and rescue efforts from down in Morocco. So each combatant commander is going to have their own set of search and rescue procedures or missing person procedures. I was a Navy guy. We had man overboard drills, right? It was pretty incredible in the Navy, Josh, and they would do drills every once in a while. The commanding officer of the ship would go grab a sailor, 19-year-old kid, and hide him in his stateroom or her stateroom, give him cookies and stuff like that. Like, hey, hide here for a half an hour. And the entire ship, thousands, potentially 5,000, 6,000, we would have to muster in a certain amount of time to try and find this lost individual. It's a very thorough process. And thank God, because the United States military, our country, we treasure human life. And obviously, this is a big priority. So I'm praying for a good outcome here.
And what?
Yes, definitely praying for a good outcome. To answer your question, Tom Duma, you were asking me, were they letting us know about the number that was wounded? So I just saw a article here, if you will, and it says as of early April 2026, over 380 U.S. service members have been wounded and 13 unalived in Operation Epic Fury. Most injuries resulted from Iranian drone and missile strikes on bases in the Middle East. The Army has the highest number of wounded, and over 255 troops have returned to duty. Casualty details: total wounded 381, 231 soldiers, 63 sailors, 33 airmen, and 19 Marines. Total unalived is 13. Key incident was a March 1st drone attack in Kuwait, which killed 6 soldiers and injured others, while 6 airmen died in a tanker crash in Iraq. So, yeah. So they are showing this information here in the States. So, yes. We had Tom Zuma saying, "You guys live in a dream. Wake up, remember George Carlin. He told you it all. You have to be sleeping to be in the American dream." I don't know who George Carlin is. I've never heard of him. Nope, do not know who that is. Okay. So if you're still hanging out here, the 37 of you, please go ahead and like the live stream. Push me into the algorithm. Also, if you like the vibe, please subscribe. Feel free to comment in the chat. Also, yeah, we do this on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, these live streams. Let's keep it going. So I'm sure some of you have heard about Spirit Airlines and how they have decided to stop flying. Okay. As of 3 a.m. on Saturday, on the best day of the year, May the 2nd, my birthday, they stopped operating. And you had people that were in the middle of flights, like they had flown somewhere and then they had a return flight back with Spirit. They're like, how am I gonna get home? What am I gonna do? That type of thing. So yeah, so you have people in the middle of travel, got to figure out how to get home. They got to buy a regular ticket from another airline to get back to their destination. They canceled all these flights, and I'm sure the pilots and the airline attendants, well, they'll probably find jobs with other airlines. Hopefully, the same with the administrative type people. But yeah, I mean, out the blue. And I guess not really out the blue. They've been having financial difficulties for a while. And I guess under Biden, they were trying to get they want to do a merger with JetBlue. They got disapproved, if you will. I think Trump and company was trying to help them out, but that kind of fell through. And I think with all the increases in gas prices, jet fuel, that might have took them on over the edge when it came to operation costs, right? We have Craftsman saying, okay, he's saying that George Carlin was a white comedian in the 90s. Okay, never heard of him. But yeah, so let's go ahead and see what they got to say about this whole Spirit Airlines situation. Very unfortunate. I personally never flown Spirit. The one time I was going to fly Spirit, I was in San Antonio living there. I was getting ready to come out here for a baby shower, and they canceled my flight and gave me no option for a replacement. So they kept my return flight, but they canceled my flight going out in this direction. So I just canceled everything, got my money back, and I sent my friend, some additional things for her baby shower. I said, you know what? If I'm not spending money to come to the baby shower and all of that, I can at least buy you some additional gifts for the baby. And that's what I did. So I might not have been present, but my money and my gifts were. And that's what counted. Okay. But anyway, we have Eric saying that would not happen if the Democrats would have voted for them to merge with JetBlue. Okay. Yeah, I was just saying how that didn't get approved under the Biden administration. Yep. We have Navad Dalloway here. Welcome to the check-in. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get into the little video. But keep commenting.
For the summer months where they are expected to travel. The war with Iran, though, causing some impacts here. At least that's what was said by some of the representatives for Spirit Airlines, who chose to cease all operations over the weekend. That announcement coming on Saturday. Taking a live look here at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Now, a lot of travelers who were planning to fly with Spirit or are already flying with Spirit have a lot of questions as to what this means and also what's going to happen going forward. Joining us now to talk about all of this is Dr. John Rose. He's the Chief Risk Advisor at Altour. He's joined us several times in the past as we track some of these travel situations happening all over the world. John, good morning. Good to have you on.
Good morning.
Let's just start with this. As someone who follows these kind of headlines very closely, when you hear Spirit completely stopping all operations over the weekend, ceasing to exist, essentially, what went through your mind? Can you walk us through how we got to this point in the first place?
Well, if you look at the history of it, it goes back to large loans they had to take during COVID, like all the airlines did. They were extremely devastated when
Interesting.
travel stopped. And in order to keep any of the businesses afloat, they had to take out large loans. And most companies had to do this during COVID to sustain the feasibility of existing as a company.
So y'all, I didn't realize that the airlines had to take out those loans during COVID. Um, that seems so long ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Maybe what, 5 years ago? So I guess they took out the loans and they're still trying to figure out how to repay the loans. Is that what contributed to the financial situations and issues here? Not sure why they didn't just go ahead and raise the ticket prices to some extent. But let's keep it going.
So it stems back to that. But you have a multiple of things that happen. They are also a low cost carrier, so they operate at very low margins. And they don't have the type of cash on hand to service a lot of these debt loads. Now you make it much worse as jet fuel prices rise. They can't rise the price of tickets as fast, and the tickets they've already sold do not cover the cost of the existing jet fuel. So
Makes
that's
sense.
like buying a gallon of milk at $6, but in reality, the gallon of milk costs $12 to the supplier. So there's just no way it works for the traveler and the airline.
I guess I understand what he's saying, that increasing the cost, they didn't have the ability to do that in this time frame. But I'm saying for me, like when they started having these issues with financial situations a few years ago, why not have started doing a gradual increase in the rates back then? Because I mean, I've seen flights for like what, $30, $60. Like they could have raised those prices, well before now. So I mean, I would have done that despite the fuel situation. When I had to take them large loans out and I don't have any cash, I would have been increasing them rates. But that's just how I look at things. They had a different perspective. And my understanding is that, Southwest was kind of like them, but Southwest went ahead and changed their business model. And, they started charging for bags, things like that. They wanted to stay in the game. So you got to be able to pivot sometimes and figure out how to, kind of you know, get the cost and the profit to kind of balance out. They ain't have no profit. Why am I saying that? Let's keep it going. Oh, what we have in the comments first. We have Tom Duma saying George Carlin last stand up show was in 2008 for HBO. I didn't have HBO in 2008, but okay. Thank you for the info though. We got Craftsman saying, good Lord, he got a deep voice. Yep. He says, also, I said the fuel price right now ain't helping. It sure ain't helping. Then we got Lou saying they weren't hedging fuel. Okay. And then he was saying that they are banking on at least one of their merger options to work out. Yeah, they are probably banking on that on the back end. I'm saying on the front end, they could have went ahead and started the process of raising them rates, but I don't know. I'm just an engineer. I'm not an economic person. But let's keep it going.
For sustainability. So to service that debt and to cover their cost of jet fuel, they needed a lot of money infusion or to be sold off or merged with another airline.
And we're going to talk about those potential steps that Spirit could have taken possibly to get us to a different point today. But before we get into all of that, I want to talk about the travelers that are really impacted by this, people that are concerned, some people that have bought tickets, some people that are possibly in the middle of traveling and now they're stranded because Spirit Airlines has shut down. What would be your advice to anyone that is in this situation at the moment? They're trying to figure out what to do next and they're just confused and a bit lost.
Buy a ticket somewhere else.
If you're traveling, like in motion,
Travel
and
insurance.
you've got to get home and there's no flight, there's no plane there, and it's terrible situation. The only solution you have is to buy a ticket on another carrier. Now, the carriers have stepped up and they've said there's something they call rescue fares, but that doesn't mean they're going to sell you a ticket at what you paid for it from Spirit. Spirit,
Right.
first off, was the least expensive option in the travel industry, and you probably purchased those tickets long before the jet fuel prices escalated significantly. So you're going to have to pay for a regular ticket. Now, it's not, they're not going to gouge you. They're not going to charge you what we consider full fare, depending on the space of the flight you want to get on. Of course, if there's one seat left, that's a completely different scenario. But the consumer, while traveling, their options are to buy a ticket on another airline or find another mode of transportation. I've read some people are renting cars because Spirit flew a lot of short haul flights. So they're saying, hey, maybe I'll just drive 5 hours in a rental car. And that's a very viable option. So that's the solution for people in travel. If you're cut travel coming up, if you had travel insurance, talk to your travel insurance provider. Now, it's doubtful they cover this because Spirit Airlines financial problems have been known for years. And airlines, when they're in these situations, they're often not covered by financial default by travel insurance. They say this is a known problem. You have a ticket on a carrier who's probably going out of business. That's not insurable, but some might insure. Some credit cards, they have travel insurance coverage, might insure that. And some credit cards might allow you to charge it back to the airline, though doubtful. All of those.
Let's be real. If you buy a flight on Spirit, like I want to say the flight that I was buying, of that when I was trying to fly Spirit up this way, I might have spent $100. People are not getting travel insurance for $100 round trip tickets. Now, granted, if you use your credit card, that's a different thing. If you have credit, if you have any type of travel insurance with your credit card, that's different. But you know, when you buy like a rental car or you buy like a flight or something, you get the option to get travel insurance. And I highly doubt if most people even thought to do that, even with them knowing and hearing about the potential for them to go bankrupt. They've been bankrupt, I think, twice so far. They were waiting on this whole decision from the Trump administration. You know, I doubt if they even thought about getting any type of insurance during this time. Okay, so we have what we got here in the chat real fast. We have Craftsman saying, I would spend 10 or 20 more dollars to stay away from that drama. Yeah. Yeah, you probably wouldn't be flying on Spirit either. We got David Zabrowski, welcome. Saying, get Trump to buy the tickets as the fuel crisis is his fault. We have Nevada Dalloway saying, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome. We have Lou saying these new ticket prices are about to be ridiculous. Spirit, love them or hate them, was the counterbalance. And then he says they were helping to meter fares in the market. Got you. It's going to be interesting to kind of see, you know, how they're going to step in and try to take those diehard Spirit customers. They're going to probably move over to Frontier. Is what they're going to probably do. But I don't know. I'm not an analyst. So let me see what you guys were saying to this poll. I asked you guys if you had ever heard of rescue fare. So 67% said no, 30% said yes. Thank you guys for participating in the poll. I'm getting tongue tied with all these P's, y'all. Let's go ahead and get back into it.
Revenues are potential solutions for you to get financial remuneration back. So you can always try to file a claim as long as you have all your information together. But again, it's a long shot. For the most part, you're probably out of money like any other company that goes out of business. You've got no one to go back to.
Right. They don't have a
it's
customer
interesting
service
because I
function.
think my following question was going to be, would Spirit Airlines face any type of consequence for doing this to the consumer and to the travelers? But I'm gleaming from this last answer that you gave that, I mean, it's pretty much done with. The company is, shut down effectively, and now travelers have to take it upon themselves to kind of figure out what the next steps are.
Exactly. And I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, but when a company files for bankruptcy, eventually their assets are sold off, and Spirit has assets. They have planes, they have physical assets that will be sold off for some amount of money. And then you have your list of debtors that through the bankruptcy courts that get a percentage of that. And eventually something may come down to the consumers. And of course, there's always the chance the US government may step in to help consumers in time, saying we tried to rescue this airline. but because we couldn't, we may be able to help you in some way, but don't expect that now or even in the next year. That'll be a long play. But, the ultimate situation here is the consumers were the ones who were hurt because the airline wasn't able to stay in operation.
Let's go back to the topic of how Spirit got here in the first place. I want to take us out to a social media post courtesy of Fox News here. It says this: Senator Elizabeth Warren is under fire after Spirit Airlines abruptly shut down 2 years after she praised a blocked merger between Spirit and JetBlue as a, quote, Biden win for flyers. Spirit has ceased operations immediately, leaving many travelers stranded after all flights were canceled and reigniting debate over whether federal regulators got it wrong in blocking the merger. Now, John, I know that you have followed this specific situation very closely. Talk to us a little bit, first of all, giving us more of an overview of this merger that was proposed between Spirit and JetBlue, how ultimately it could be possible that because that merger did not go through, we're seeing this situation now with Spirit.
Well, exactly. That's what started this. I mean, the senator said the nail in the coffin. Well, that's kind of a statement that you foresee someone's end, the death of the airline, the nail in the just the final piece. The airline wanted to merge with JetBlue because they couldn't service their debt load. And every company is born and dies, just like life. But they can be prolonged through mergers and acquisitions. And I'm a big proponent of mergers and acquisitions. I actually teach on that topic, and I have a long history of working in the field. This was a logical suggestion to merge with another much smaller airline. Remember, this isn't, the proposed, well, it wasn't proposed, the suggested merger of United and American, which made large news in the last few weeks. This is a very small carrier picking up a distressed, even smaller carrier. On paper, it seemed to make sense. The consumers would be protected. The flights are still going. And let's talk about the employees of Spirit. They weren't going to lose their jobs. Through any merger, you're going to have some overlap and there's going to be some jobs that are eliminated, but the most part, they keep their jobs. This was blocked in 2024 because they said it was going to be antitrust, meaning it's anti-friendly to the consumers, and JetBlue would have been able to demand much higher prices. So let's fast forward to today. There is no competition from Spirit, so the airlines are going to be able to charge what supply and demand will allow.
Right.
Competition is great, but mergers and acquisitions are also great for the survival of certain pieces of an industry to go forward. And it seemed to make a lot of sense back in 2024. They've been in constant stress ever since, shrinking operations, having to seek different types of bailouts, and now the consumers lose. They don't win anything in this scenario.
It's interesting that you did just mention the fact that over the last couple of weeks, or a couple of weeks ago, there was that merger, the talk between American Airlines and United Airlines. So obviously this is something that, has been on the table for several companies when they face these sort of challenges. Now that we see what Spirit went through, and of course you touched on it a bit within that last answer, but Spirit being an airline that operates on this low cost model, I mean, are there other airlines right now that are specifically on high alert because they're vulnerable, because they follow a similar type of model for Spirit? And really, as a whole, what kind of lessons can be taken from this, and what would we expect from companies possibly going forward?
Well, I don't want to speculate on any of the airlines having deep financial problems. Obviously, the cost of jet fuel puts a strain on them, but it's nothing to the level of Spirit. There are other.
Hey, the price of jet fuel is putting a strain on the airlines, and the price of gas is putting a strain on Americans, honey, because the gas over here, I think, was like $4 and was it 29 cents that I saw today? Depending on where I go in my little town, the gas can be between $4.29 and $4.40-ish. But my goodness, I mean, I know someone said last week they paying like $10 a gallon, so I don't need to complain. I get it, but y'all, $4.29. My goodness. We got Craftsman saying, "All right, cowgirl, I gotta take my wife out to dinner. I'll see you another day." All right, thank you, Craftsman. Have a great dinner with the wife. Yes. We got Terrible Time saying socks from Spirit written with crayons. Ooh, not with crayons now. Then we got Tom Doomer saying just a few hours before Trump announced the Iran war, they all bought shares in Raytheon, etc. Hexeth, Carolyn, Levitt Juice, Jerex, Kuisner, Trump's son made billions on insider trading. I saw where someone had questioned Hexeth during his hearing last week about insider, trading, insider information, all of that. But I did not watch the entire thing. I mean, that he had a 2-day hearing, my goodness. But someone did question him about the insider information being leaked. So maybe that's what you're alluding to here with your statement. And then we have David Zarowski saying charter flights are paid for by the insurance company. And he also said that airlines are insured in Europe and also travel companies are insured if they fail. Nice. Let's keep it going.
Cost carriers, Southwest completely changed their business model. They were likely the one people would consider the most similar to Spirit, but that's different. You have other smaller carriers. They're all stressed, but the reality is, I don't think there's anything that the consumers have to worry about unless it becomes known. So don't think they're going to, no, there's no reason to think any of the other carriers are in significant trouble right now. But what consumers have to think about are what are my options? Because I may not have options just to fly certain routes because there's going to be no carriers there. Now, that wonderful thing about capitalism, and why I love it so much, somebody will jump in to fill the void, whether that's a new airline that tries to start up, whether that's one of the major airlines, meaning by major, I mean by size, that says, hey, I want to fill this gap and maybe we'll start offering more regional flights that Spirit used to fly, et cetera. Over the years, we've seen all the airlines try different things, and they benefit the consumer because they're trying to give them lift, as we say, seats on planes to go places. Because if Spirit Airlines had enough customers flying the airline, they've just got to be able to charge a price that makes at least a break even. But of course, everybody
There you
needs to
go.
make a
They had
profit
the
so
clientele.
that
They ain't
there's
had the
service
money
for the
coming in.
customers, and everybody wins in that scenario.
I'm curious also, John, this was a question that just came to me when I saw all of this happening with Spirit. Why is it that an airline would choose to just, on any given day, pick, we're just stopping operations, it's all over, versus taking an alternative route, maybe over the last several months, cutting down on some of those routes, cutting down on some of those expenses? How does that whole process really work?
Well, it's a much deeper process around the financials. They just can't sustain it. So when you cut operations, you just don't have the profit on those remaining operations to pay your bills, your debt. So it's no different than your favorite restaurant. Most of us have had a restaurant go out of business probably in the last year because restaurants don't have a very long life.
I'll tell you what went out of business that was very dear to my heart, and that was the store called The Limited. I bought 75% of my clothes from them, and they went out of business, and I was just devastated, y'all. Okay? So I understand what they're talking about here. Let's keep it going. Yes.
They just can't sustain operations financially. So rather than scale back hours or staff, they realize I just can't earn enough to pay our bills. We have to shut the doors. So you have to think of it the same way. That's what Spirit said. They were offered different bailouts from the US government, and they said this still isn't enough for us to make this airline profitable for a long period of time, and we can't keep operations running. So shutting down is our best avenue.
Well, John, I feel like we covered a lot of ground here within this discussion. It was stunning news over the weekend. Any final thoughts that you would like to leave with our viewers, with travelers? Again, as I mentioned before, we are heading into a busy couple of months with the summer coming up here. So what should people just remember as they book their travel plans?
Well, don't get sour on travel. This is a normal evolution in travel industry. Throughout my career, dozens of airlines have merged with others or went completely out of business. And the airline industry still gets larger. They're still ever to expand services. So don't panic that Spirit shut down operations and worry about your next flight on a major airline. I don't think there's anything to worry about in that respect. This is a normal evolutionary process. It is painful right now, but be patient. The other carriers are stepping up. The routes will be there. The seats will be there. And the travel industry will do what it always does. It survives and moves forward through every major event that they tend to have every few years, whether it's, COVID, jet fuel, different issues with wars all over the world, economic downturn. They're going to make it. So don't lose faith in the industry. Just make sure you've got a good support team behind you so that you can travel safely, because everything with me is about risk.
All right, John. Well, we are ending on a good note. I like it. Dr. John Rose.
All right, y'all. So we talked about technical difficulty. Sorry about that. Y'all, so we talked about Spirit Airlines, rest in peace to Spirit Airlines, y'all. But yes, y'all, I did go on Truth Social and I wanted to show you some of the posts that we had gotten from President Trump today. Just a few. It ain't gonna take that long, y'all. I'm trying to pull up my tablet here. So I want to say we talked about Jerome Powell last week. Jerome Powell, to my understanding, is over the Federal Reserve, that situation. And so you see here, Trump has a statement saying, quote unquote, too late. It's a disaster for America. Interest rates are too high. Then he has Jerome Powell being tossed into the dumpster. Y'all see this? My goodness. I should have read the comments. So we have Tom Dumas saying London is the world center for insurance, container ships, oil tankers, airplanes. Prices gone up 300%. They F you on purpose. Trump saying we will liberate the Iranian people from their oil. Then he also says capitalism is pumping money out of your pocket and give them to the billionaire class. I think you want the blue pill. Go back to sleep. Dream till it's over. I better just be quiet. Then we got DeVille in the house saying 600% Trump. And then Lou had a comment, but it got retracted. Let me put on here all comments, live chat. Okay. And then we have Tom Dumas saying, bail them out, give them your savings. Okay. But yeah, so this is what Trump posted today in regards to Jerome Powell. So Lou is saying Uncle Powell, the untouchable. Then we have Prince Kyriakos, welcome to the check-in, saying has nothing to do with the billionaire class. It's all the thing to do with brainwashing and propaganda for the left-wing lunatics. Okay. Y'all, I'm getting better about reading these comments on the fly, y'all. So work with me. Okay, so next up, we have another one that Trump posted where he's saying that hold on one second, y'all. 1 second. I'm sorry. 107. Okay, so we have another one where we have Trump is saying that he made the United States of America $45 billion in 8 months. It says Trump's Intel investment is now up $45 billion. So Trump buys at $20 and then it's now worth $97. So this is what he has put out there today. I'm not really sure what he's talking about here. I'm sure you guys probably know. Let me see. We got David Zarowski saying Trump is a craze. We got Stewart 2004. Welcome to the check-in. Saying remember when people complained about gas prices during the Biden administration, they told you to buy and let your car if you don't like it. I remember. But didn't when Trump got in office, didn't he go ahead and like cancel all that stuff that was put in place for electric vehicles? Like, didn't he cancel all that stuff out like once he got in office, saying it was a waste? I could be wrong, but I remember something along those lines when he first got into, his position. Okay. But I guess you're right. I guess they electric car is sounding kind of good right about now, right? Now this last one that I saw that he posted today, I still don't understand this one. But we're gonna get into it. Here we go. Let's see. So this one, he's showing an image of him. These are like cartoon characters, an image of him with the fist up saying leaders lead. And then the one on the top right, says cowards kneel. I believe he's talking about Biden. And then he has a picture on the bottom right that says traitors bow. I think he's referring to President Obama. I don't think that Obama was a traitor of any kind. I haven't seen anything that leads anyone to think that. Same thing when it comes to uh President Biden. I think that, when they had all that Black Lives Matter stuff going on with like James Floyd and everything, I think when they were doing the NFL games, people would, kneel opposed to um do the, sing to the American song or whatever, salute the flag or whatever. But yeah, so that's what I think the kneeling is referencing to. Um, but yeah, he posted that today, y'all. So let's keep it going. So Trump be trumping, y'all. Y'all know he come up with something. He has some other videos on his Truth Social today, but I didn't have a chance to look at them all. So we have David Zarowski saying you would prefer an electric car given the price of gas now. No doubt. And we have Stewart 2004 saying, but some people have a selective or short memory. Yes, they do. I agree with that. But yes, y'all. So we have we've had a pretty good little show today. We've been around the world and back. We started out talking about Project Freedom. We were talking about, the U.S. possibly sinking those 6 Iranian ships and how Iran is saying they attacked an American Navy ship or whatever. Still not sure what's what. We'll see eventually. We have the 2 service members who happen to be women that are missing in Morocco. Prayers to them and their safe return unharmed. Okay. Um, I really do hope they are found well and unharmed, but we're going to keep hope alive on that. And then we talked about Spirit Airlines closing and the impact, to the people that's out traveling right now. And also we talked about, like what got them here, like what caused them to be in this position. Now I get that, the Democrats did not approve a previous merger with JetBlue, but I feel like they were already down a slippery slope well before that. Okay. So they were trying to catch themselves, but they should have caught up and started charging more on them plane tickets. If they were having like 40 million people, I think it was, that they were flying every year, oh, they had the people. You need to up that cost, but neither here nor there right now because they're what? Closed and shut down for business. All right, and we've looked at a few of these truth social posts from Trump, and yeah, that's where we are. So we have David Zarowski saying you cannot blame Biden for Iran. Okay, well, I'm not blaming Biden for Iran, but okay. That's probably something that went over my head. So understood it. But yes, y'all. So anyway, tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo. Okay. So I hope you guys are doing something fun for Cinco de Mayo. Even if you're gonna be at home eating your chips and salsa and drinking you some Chico water or whatever that's called. Enjoy yourself. Okay. I know I will be. I'm going to meet a friend. Um at some place. I don't even know where I'm going, but I know we're going out for Cinco de Mayo. I'll tell y'all about it on Wednesday when I come back to the check-in, okay? So, yes, thank you, Mr. Lou. If you're still here, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you like the vibe, you should have been subscribed already. What you waiting on, okay? If you've been here more than once, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button, okay? You know you like it here, and I like you being here. But yes, y'all, I am going to go ahead and call it a night because I am tired. I will see you guys back Wednesday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern. Okay. You have a good night and you have a good day tomorrow. May the 4th be with you. I'm out.